Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Curtis Johnson, and here is my presentation of the Science in the Bible project we've been working on. I want you to imagine with me that you live in a time where there are fire-breathing creatures with humongously large teeth that have tails as strong and as hard as a tree, and bodies that are covered in scales so strong that most man-made weapons could not even begin to penetrate through them. That all sounds like something from a fantasy, right? It sounds like it's in a non-existent world, but that is actually not the case. Yes, I'm referring to dinosaurs. So the question that I chose to address was, did dinosaurs even really exist? You know what? Science actually proves to us, and the Bible, most of all, which is of most importance, proves to us that yes, dinosaurs did indeed exist. They did live at the time of man, which is something we'll talk about further. But the question is not so much did dinosaurs exist, so much as it is when did they exist, and take it a step further, what happened to them? Where did they go? What caused them to disappear? Secular scientists today are currently teaching the same thing they've been teaching for several decades, since the 1859 publication of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species. And that is this: according to the editors of Science News Today, science teaches that dinosaurs lived and evolved over the course of millions and millions of years in the Mesozoic era. Current secular teachings claim that the dinosaurs disappeared due to an enormous meteorite that hit the ground with such force, and it caused such disruptions in the earth itself and in the climate and all kinds of stuff, and that because of that, it just caused catastrophic ramifications to be placed upon not just dinosaurs, but upon all animals that were alive at that point. Science Illustrated said it like this: the great dinosaurs and much of Earth's other wildlife died either immediately after the asteroid or meteorite impact on the Yucatan Peninsula, or because the planet's food chains collapsed in the following years. So the topic that we're discussing, these dinosaurs, it does align with Scripture in the sense that believers, we agree with secular scientists that dinosaurs definitely did exist. But we take it a little bit differently because it's not so much, as I mentioned earlier, when did they exist, but when. And our timeline is far different from what secular scientists seem to portray. So in today's Christian classrooms, teachers need to look to the Bible, ultimately, for descriptions of dinosaurs, just like we do for any other natural happening or creature, things of that nature, for descriptions. But also, teachers would do really well to look to renowned creationist scientists, Christian scientists, such as Ken Ham, and he's not the only one, but he's the main one that people think of whenever we're talking about creationism, the age of the world, and things like dinosaurs and things of that nature, because he looks at everything from a Christian perspective, most definitely. And he has a science organization called Answers in Genesis, and that organization puts out really well-researched information that teachers would do very well to check up on and check back on, track back and forth for updates and stuff on things that they're discussing in the classrooms. So many Christian teachings of dinosaurs are drawn these days from Ken Ham's works, because he's able to just very succinctly encapsulate all of the beliefs of a number of creationist scientists, and he kind of conglomerates it all and gives it into a nutshell for us. So, and that's whether it's about the age of the world or all beings of nature, which again would include dinosaurs. So he asserts that dinosaurs were created on day 6 of creation. Where does he get that? The book of Genesis, right? Genesis 1 verse 24 and 25 says every beast of the earth was created on day 6. Because we believe the Bible to be taken literally, especially in this sense when we're talking about the days of creation, that makes it clear that the dinosaurs were created within one day. That's the time span, one day, not millions and millions of years as secular scientists portray. The Bible mentions a couple of creatures that actually match the descriptions of dinosaurs. which is very interesting. I don't know, that's not something you hear a whole lot about, but the book of Job gives us two of those. First one is the behemoth in Job chapter 40, verses 15 through 24, and the other one is the Leviathan in Job chapter 41, verses 1 through 34. So there's actually several verses given to the descriptions of these dinosaurs. The behemoth was described in the Bible, I'll try to summarize it all for you, as being a plant eater. It had powerful legs and a stomach and chest that was super strong, almost like a shield, if you will. It's just a very, very hard body structure, an overall superbly muscular body, and a tail like cedar. That's the Bible uses that particular phrase. I thought that was interesting. A tail like cedar, which means that it was a long tail, but it was super strong too. All those things, when you put it together, that sounds like a description of a dinosaur. And then also the Bible discusses the Leviathan, which says it is basically, again, it sounds like something from a fantasy, but the Bible says it, a dragon-like sea creature that flew, breathed fire, had strong scales all over its body, possessed huge teeth, and it was so large and powerful that even the man-made weapons of the time, arrows, darts, and spears, didn't even faze it. That also fits the description of a dinosaur. And I don't know about you, but I, for one, am very glad that I don't live in the days of those dinosaurs. Secular scientists teach that dinosaurs existed millions of years ago, as we mentioned, while the Bible teaches that the earth itself is only approximately 6,000 years old. Again, that information comes from Answers in Genesis. Ken Ham said this: biblical creationists believe that man and dinosaurs lived at the same time because God said that he created man and land animals on day 6. There is historical evidence of dinosaurs and man living together, according to Ken Ham. I did not bring up those particular instances of times, but he brought up at least 3 on his website of instances where you can see that dinosaur-like creatures and man had lived in the same area around the same time, which is amazing to me. Also worthy of note is the fact that Genesis chapter 6, verses 19 and 20 tells us that 2 of every creature was present on the ark. Then what does that mean was also present on the ark? A pair of dinosaurs? That's exactly what it means. So what happened to them then? If they survived on the ark, what happened? Well, most likely all the rest of them died out with the other creatures that were not on the ark whenever the great flood occurred, right? We're familiar with that. So, according to creationapologetics.org, the worldwide flood played a major role in the rapid decline of the dinosaurs due to its killing all the creatures that were alive before the flood. So that makes sense, right? But what happened to the pair that most likely that survived on the ark? Christian apologetics further claimed that life after the flood was hard for animals such as dinosaurs that survived the flood by being on the ark. Here was their reasoning: because the pressures of climatic change and hunting were far too much for some of the animals to overcome. These unstable cycles would have certainly had effects on their breeding habits and other things. Simply, many of the dinosaurs likely had great difficulty adjusting to the new weather patterns. The climate was completely different. You had the greenhouse effect is now underway with the covering of the canopy, if you will, of the earth. Things were just totally different in the environments for, not just for people. We know it affected people as well, with their aging, and things were more increased at a more rapid rate than it used to. They used to live for hundreds and hundreds of years, and then they didn't after the flood, not as long. Kind of the same idea with dinosaurs and all the other creatures. It totally altered their environment. And they came out of that ark, and their bodies were just not able to adjust as quickly. And so as a result, they just kind of faded out of existence. So in conclusion, did dinosaurs exist? Absolutely. Dinosaurs most definitely did exist. And just like all other elements of science that are discussed in classrooms, whether it's animals or laws of nature or just all of creation, really, it all serves as powerful examples of the omnipotence of God. And that's what we have to do as teachers, as Christian teachers. We have to draw everything back to God. We have to point even dinosaurs and all their majestic power and their strength. That's because the Creator gave it to them. And that's what we have to get across to our students, is that, yes, creation and the creatures are powerful, they're strong, they are amazing, and they have such intricate things that help them to survive and instincts and stuff like that. But they only have that because the Creator gave it to them. And that's what we've got to constantly point our students back to the Creator, not just focus on the creation. So science teachers, this is my humble opinion, would do well, and I'm referring to Christian teachers, would do well to present both sides of the question as to the timing of when the existence of dinosaurs was, because they need to be familiar with what the secular education is as well as what the Christian education is. But as I mentioned, even when we're talking about dinosaurs, you need to strive to always point the students back to the fact that God and His Word are what we follow in regards to science, just as we do in all other areas of life. Because now we have let them know, yes, this is what man teaches, but what God teaches is what ultimately is what we follow, regardless of what man may claim. I wanted to show one more quick thing before we go. I did my best to find a couple of pictures of the two creatures that were mentioned. I'm going to try to come up to the screen here to make sure you can see it. I apologize for this example of the behemoth looking a tiny bit cartoonish, but that is the best picture that I could find on Pixabay. But you can see how it describes kind of that muscular body, and there's that long tail. So I thought that's a pretty accurate description. And then also I found one of the Leviathan. Honestly, that picture, it looks kind of like some type of a crocodile, dragon creature. Again, these are just artist renderings. There's no way we could know for sure certain what the Leviathan and the behemoth looked like. But that's pretty accurately describing what was told to us in the book of Job. So I found the whole discussion of the existence of dinosaurs to be quite fascinating. So thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful day.